Hello friends, welcome back. This is full stack development video series. We are building online course enrollment application and this is episode 13. So I'm going to show you how you can implement the authentication and authorization mechanism for this .NET Core 8 and Angular 18 application using Azure Active Directory business to consumer, which is also called Azure AD B2C. And this time I will show you from start to the end, very basics, and walk you through in depth of how you can do various important steps in these things. So this will be useful for your full stack development. Without delay, come let's get started. So friends, before we dive in, this is the GitHub link where you will find every single project that I'm demonstrating. So feel free to go through and browse whichever project you like. For this specific video, I will post the exact link of the repository in the video description itself. If you would like to follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and GitHub, these are the links that you can click and follow me. I will be more than happy to collaborate with you. So don't forget to follow me. Now let's dive into the video. Alright, so all what you need is you need to have a Azure login. So I logged into the portal.azure.com. It is free. If you have not done so, please feel free to do it. Once you have done it, go to the search and say Azure Active Directory. So here's something called in the marketplace Azure Active Directory is there. So click on it and click on create a new Azure Active Directory. There is a link also, but that's something to link with your existing stuff. So let's do the first thing, create a new tenant. Okay, so here you need to fill up the basic things like some organization name and all of those things, right? So let's go to the basics and then see in basics, because you choose this path, only one option is available. And then the second one, right, under the configuration, organization name. See, we are dealing with online course, right? So I want my organization to be recognized. So I'm going to use this as SmartLearnByKarthik. The reason why we have to have this name, is people should recognize you. So especially, right, organization name, you can name it with like a space. It's a readable content. But initial domain name, which will be the one that you will see in the URL, so it should be something good that people should recognize. You see, it is smartlearnbykarthik.onmicrosoft.com. that relates to my website itself. Choose the location and this domain name should be unique. So because I'm choosing this subscription, like I have multiple subscription, choose the resource group. Everything is set. Click on create. It will create. It takes a couple of minutes. I'm gonna fast forward it. Once it is created, there are multiple ways you can go through it. Okay. So what you can do is click on this profile and click on this directories. So here, this is the directory that it started showing up, right? So after some time, it starts showing up. Click on switch. Then it will take you to that directory. I have other directories also, but see this directory, when you come, it will show everything as like, please start your free trial. Don't do any of those things. Okay. Basically, this is a tenant, Azure AD B2C tenant. And whatever is popping up is basically, as of this recording, October is the deadline for MFA. So anyway, you also guys do it. So coming back to this, right? So when you have a AD B2C tenant here like this, it will initially show there is no subscription. That's why it's asking you to start a free. Don't do any of those things. Click on Azure AD B2C in the search and go to this place. Okay, so you can see the domain and all of those things. Now if you look at in the left side, right, you have some app registration where we will be doing the application registration, some policies, securities, and all of those things. We will explore one by one, but this video is very specific to authentication. Click on users. This is the place after people register by using an application. You can see those coming up here. Okay, and I've told several times Azure Active Directory is no enter ID that's been displayed everywhere. Anyway, now let's start from first, right? So Azure AD B2C. And you have the app registration, identity providers. See, identity providers are these identity providers. If you have any username, password of any of these things like Facebook, you can log in with your Facebook email ID and password, which I will show you later in the video. API connectors are very useful. That is what our episode 14 video, very interesting video. All right, stay tuned. Now company branding, you can brand your user-friendly UIs and all of those things. So let's start with the first one called user flows. User flows are nothing but policies. Okay, For our good sake, Microsoft has already created inbuilt policies like this. You can see all of these things are inbuilt policy. Microsoft strongly suggests use their inbuilt policy unless you have very specific flow that you need to design for it. Okay, I'm not going to do all of those things because this itself is enough for us. Click on sign up, sign in. That will be our first one. There are two versions. One is the recommended version and the standard legacy version. Go with the recommended version. Like I said, try to use as much as possible, right? Unless you really have a different requirement. Once you do this, you will land here. See, B2C underscore 1 underscore is a prefix. After that, I'm giving a name called sign up, sign in. Remember guys, do a small letter. Do not give a capital letter here. Identity providers. We haven't done any of this with identity provider. The only option for us is the internal email. That's why local email. The next is multi-factor authentication. I'm going to choose as email for now. Later you can choose and then I'm going to switch off it, because as if you switch on, every time that you log in, it will force you to have a MFA setup. Like it will ask you code, this, that, and all will be very annoying. We will do all of those things to secure later. But then these are the options, right? Now the next thing is important thing called user attributes and token claims. See, basically, as we deal with this mechanism, right, there are two things: collect attributes and return claims. Collect attributes means that you're collecting some information from the user when they're trying to register. Okay, so we have all of these inbuilt collect attribute filters. You see this city, blah blah, so many things. So what I wanted to collect from user is the display name, first name, last name. That's it. I don't want to collect any of the other information. Depending on the application, you can collect these things or you can collect it later also. Now I'm collecting only these things. Return claim means in the encoded content, right, what kind of information needs to be sent it back. That is why it will be useful for the application like Angular or the .NET. So I'm choosing whatever I wanted to send it back in the claims. That is why it is called return claims. You create it, the user flow will be created. There are two more user flows which we have to create. So click on the user flow. The second one that we have to create is the password reset, because people wanted to reset their password, they forgot the password, all of those things, right? So we are going to create the similar setup. So you give a name, password underscore reset. Please make sure you give whatever you name, but everything small letter. Okay, again, only the local email ID that we can go with it. That's why I'm choosing it. As we progress, change the identity, we can choose more options. Now again, this is nothing to do with the input because you're just resetting the password. That's why only return claims are available. So create it. The last one, last but not least, is the editing of the profile. Meaning you created an account with your display name, username, last name, first name and all, right? In case you wanted to update it, change it, where will you do? That's when this profile editing user flow is coming into picture. So again, all of these steps are same, but here, right, remember, if you wanted to allow user to modify something, choose that as collect attribute. So in my case, I am allowing user to change their display name, first name and last name after creating the account also. That is why I selected these three as the collect attributes. Okay, return claims, you can choose whatever you want. Okay, now these three flows are created. Now we have two applications, right, Angular and the .NET Core. So we have to go and register those applications in order for Azure to know what we are dealing with it. Now if you go and click on all application, there will be something like this. Please do not delete that, everything will screw up. Now click on new app registration. Here what we are going to do is we are going to create first two applications that is meant for our local development. Okay, so I'm going to give a name and I'm going to also give some prefix to identify what is this. For example, the one that I'm trying to give now is a new application registration for the API. So I name it like this, and then I will also give a prefix called dev. So I know this registration is meant for development environment, something like that. Okay, now this is what the name is. Supported accounts, there are three types. Okay, single tenant and multi-tenant. Single tenant means user who are within my organization, like SmartLearnByKarthik. they only can register, they only can use the application. We don't want that, and I don't want any other user in any other Azure directory to use it. I want users like you who use Facebook, Outlook, and all of those things to come to me. That's why we choose the third one. Now redirect URI, this is a web application, so you choose web and then choose the the URL. It should be HTTPS URL that is running from your local. Okay, so that's what it is running, and then click on the grant admin, click on create application. So once the application is created, you will see a overview which will have the client ID, the object ID, tenant ID, and so many information. We are interested with the client ID, so we will be copying this later, but just stay tuned. These are the redirect, the client credential, all of those things, basic things will be displayed here. You can also modify here. Now we have to first expose an API. So our API needs to be accessed by our Angular application, right? That's why we have to expose our API. Click on expose an API, and there is something called Application ID URI. See, this Application ID URI should be unique. If you look at the domain name, smartlearnbykарthik.onmicrosoft.com. Okay, after that, I might be registering like 100 application, right? So it has to be unique. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to follow some convention, naming convention. So first thing is, I will first give my application name. My application name is Learn Smart by Karthik, right? That's the online application. And then followed by, I'm going to give a environment name, which is dev/API. Okay, so this will be the unique URI for the dev environment. If it is stage, I will name it as stage. For production, you will see shortly that we will be creating for production. I will name it as production prod. Now the application ID URI is created. That will be unique. Unique means always unique across the world. Okay, now we have to create a scope. Scope means within what kind of area the Angular application is allowed to access. Okay, we'll be configuring this scope in the API, but let's say I wanted to create a scope called user.read. So right now I have typed just read. I'm going to delete this and quickly create a proper one. So the first is the scope, right? So I'm going to create a scope. Scope is nothing but a portion which under the consuming application can be used. So that is what called scope, right? Within the scope only you have this something like that we say, no? So scope is user.read, which means basically any incoming request that has the scope will be able to read the endpoints. That is what basically means. Okay, so we can protect the endpoints based on the scopes. That's the actual idea of the scope. Okay, now I'm creating like this, and I'm going to create another scope called user.write. See, again, this portion, please remember, depending on the application and where the scopes are being configured for different controllers and endpoints, that you can create any number of scopes, and you can limit your APIs to have those kind of scopes. But our application is a demo application, so I'm just going to create only two scopes, read and write, just for the demo purpose. Okay, basically if the scope is not there, API will be rejected. That's what it is. We will see all of those things. So I'm giving two scopes, and scopes are getting created. Okay, so you might have to copy these two things, or we'll copy it later also. Okay, so instead of writes, let's have it as write. So in case you create, you can also update it. So see, the scope got updated. Good, right? All good. Okay, so now let's go back to the app registration and create on another app registration that's now for the Angular UI. So here I'm going to name a same name, but a meaningful name for the UI. So let's go and do it one more time. I'm going to copy this name and change it. I'm a lazy guy, right? Let me know I'm lazy or not in the comment section, but click on app new registration, and then I'm going to change this as UI. Okay, just for my understanding, it's a dev project, this is an application, and this stands for the UI. Again, now click on single page application under the redirect URI. In local, our Angular application always run in this port, that's why I'm copying it. In case you run it in a different port, make sure you put that port name correct. Grant admin consent, do a register. Don't forget to choose the third account type for the supported account types. Okay, we have to have the third one as the one. Now This Angular application is what is consuming the exposed endpoints, right? So whatever you see in the overview, we will come back, we will have to copy something. So now what you do, in this case, we have to click on API permission, click on add a permission. Now click on APIs my organization uses. It will list on all the app registration, right? We did. So I'm going to choose the dev API. You see this, the one I'm choosing is the dev one, and then it shows all of those exposed APIs. Click on add permission. Remember, after this step you have to click on grant admin consent for this application. Okay, then only all of the status becomes green. Right now there is no admin consent. You see, now it becomes green. Good. So far good. So we created 2 registration, and this is what is there in the overview. Now let's open up the Angular application and I'll show you what are the changes that I made. Okay, so go to this environment.ts client ID. This client ID is nothing but, we will go to our UI, copy the client ID here. So I copy this. This is what you have to do, right? After you finish the setup, come here, change to your ID. Read scope and write scope, change it based on the scopes that we created. Go to the API, go to the app registration, go to the API registration, and go to the expose API. Okay, this is what I'm actually, whatever I just said is what we are doing it. So let's go to expose API and copy these 2 things. I'm going to replace this. Whatever you're seeing is my previous application. So I'm going to replace these 2. Okay, now the endpoint, all these are changed, all good. So environment.ts, which is meant for our development, local development, has been changed. You can see it is SmartLearnByKarthik.onmicrosoft.com followed by the tenant name. All of these things are good, right? So this is what we copied. Now go to this app.config.ts, go all the way through up. I'm gonna enhance this to read a little bit more. Okay, I'm gonna make it bigger. Let's close this out. Oops, sorry. All right. Okay, so let's go to this app.config.ts and you can see these configuration, right? So here we need to change it. You see this, the 3 policies. This is what exactly 3 policy names that we created in the Azure AD B2C. Go to the user flows and you copy exactly the same name. Not even one single spelling mistake should be there, including the case. It is case sensitive. Do not create with a capital letter. That's my experience. So copy paste all of these 3 things here correctly and then come to the authority. Basically this is the one that tells where to go and find the user flow. So I'm going to change this name. You see this, SmartLearnByKarthik.b2clogin.com / the tenant name, SmartLearnByKarthik.onmicrosoft.com. You change all of these things according to how you created and come back to authority domain and change it to the domain that you created. Here it is b2clogin.com. So remember, these are the important changes that you need to make. Any one single mistake here will make sure your application is not working. So make sure you do it correctly. Okay, so repeat these things. Now Angular side, most of the stuff are done. Now what we are going to do is we're going to go to this UI. Okay, now it's API, right? So I go to this API and you can see all of these endpoints. You can see all of these token endpoints. Internally these token endpoints will be called. Okay, so anyway, now the reason why we came there is to copy the API details. So from UI perspective, Angular perspective, these things are done. Remaining code and all is not really important. So this is the the environment, the development environment. We will similarly have the production environment. Basically we need 2 packages, which is also there in the package.json. So before I forget, right, so this app.config.ts, if you come to this place, this is the interceptor, the MSAL interceptor. Basically if it finds an endpoint going out with this URL, okay, it will try to add these scopes into this URL, which means basically behind the scene it will call the token endpoint to get the token based on these scopes, and then that scope will be appended in the request, which you will see shortly when we see the demo. Now Let's go back to API, copy this client ID, and I'll show you what changes you need to do in the .NET Core Web API. Okay, so I'm going to open up the .NET Core 8 online course application, and here if you go to app settings.development.json, under this you see this, I copied the Azure AD B2C section. Okay, so here what you have to do is instance ID, right? Instance is the name of the name that you created. So in my case it is like that, and then domain name is smartlearnbykarthik.onmicrosoft.com. the first one is .b2c.login.com. okay, don't confuse it. Now sign up policies, scopes that we just copied, right? User.read, user.write, all of those things. Client ID, you see this, there's a client ID that we will change. The only packages we need is microsoft.identity.web. that is the only package that I inserted. Now coming back to program.cs, we will copy one piece of authentication logic, which is authorization and bearer token authorization, right? So you see this builder.service.add authentication. So I have just name a region. You see this that I'm highlighting, that is the authentication schema that I specify. We are saying, hey, take this configuration from the app settings.development.json here, from here. So basically based on these values, it knows how to bind it and it knows how to validate it. Okay, so this is done. Scroll down all the way through. There is two middleware that we need to configure, authentication and authorization. Once you're done with this in the program.cs, we are done with the three items like packages, configuration, program.cs. Coming back to the controller, see, I have a new controller called user admin controller. I mark this as authorized attribute, which means this controller can be invoked only when a token is there, like the bearer token is there. And I can also specify the scope that in order for them to talk to that endpoint, they need to have the scope. So just for a testing purpose, I created this user admin controller, and I am just showing you what you need to put in the attributes. Now if you see those two other controllers, right, I also put authorize here because right now we have three get endpoints which need not to be authorized. So that's why I named those as allow anonymous, which means no restrictions, anybody can call. Because from UI perspective, without logging in also you should be able to browse through the courses, right? That's why, though at the controller level I set authorize, the method level I say allow anonymous, which means it will override the controller authorization and it will treat as no authentication, no authorization. Reason is, down the line as we develop, we will be building update, like the insert, update, delete commands like post, put and delete. Those needs to be authenticated. We will build that, right? At the time we will add the scope. Now third one, completely anonymous, so I named as allow anonymous. Now coming back to production, I copy pasted the same thing. Here we will be creating a new set of app registration for the production, and we will be replacing the client ID here. Okay, that also we will see shortly. Okay, so now let's go to the app registration. Now I'm going to do exactly same thing. Whatever we did for the development, it's the same thing. There is a difference. I already deployed my application and this is the production URL, right? So remember, if you want to do it for a different environment, you have to copy this environment URL and then you have to put that into the redirect URI. So redirect URI should match from where it is coming. So for production, this is the URL. I come here and I put this one as API return direct, right? Return URL. So API registration is done. You know how the redirect URL is different than the local one. Then expose in API is exactly same. If you remember, I was showing you, it will be the application name / environment name. In this case, it's prod / API. So this also makes our application ID URI unique. So that is done. Let's add the same scope, user.read, user.write. Those two scopes should be the same, right? Of course, because you cannot have different scopes for different environment. Our application won't work. The code is same, so it has to be same. Only certain things can be changed. So I'm going to quickly create this user.read, user.write. First is done. It takes some time, right? So click on add scope, user.write. So those two are created, and let's go and quickly create the production app registration for the UI. So I'm going to copy this and change this into the production. Okay, so remember there's one more change here. Okay, so if you remember, what we have to do is everything is same except the redirect URI. So single page application, and in this case I need to choose my production UI URL. So this is my production UI URL. So I have to do this properly. Remember, this is important. Okay, so I do this, grant admin consent, click on register. Rest of the work is same. Now rest of the work, what do we have to do? What we have to do is click on API permission, click on add permission, go to this, choose the production API and choose these two, add permission. Don't forget to click on add admin consent. Okay, so that's important. Without the consent it won't work. So click yes, everything turns green. I'll go to the production UI and API. So we are going to copy this client ID, go to this API, copy it, go to this production settings, replace this guy, done. Everything looks same except the client ID. So API is good. Now let's go to the UI production environment.prod. I'm going to copy everything first from the development because everything is same except few things. So I'm going to first copy paste this, and then you will see me changing dev to prod because except this single thing everything is same. So either you copy paste from there, or I'm used to it so I know exactly what is the URL. Good, this looks good. See, this is production URL. This is easy to miss, guys, so pay attention. Now the client ID, we need to replace the client ID. I'm gonna go to this UI production. Where is that? Okay, copy the client ID, come back, replace this one. Okay, so I'm replacing it in the production. Server looks good. Now it's time to run and see the demo. So I'm going to open up this. Okay, so the moment I open up, you see this, it's redirecting. So let's first log in, and you can see the name coming, SmartLearnByKarthik.b2c.com. So this is the very first time there is no users. I have to register by myself. Stay close to me. I've been gonna inform you very important things just after this demo. Okay, ideally it should have not redirected us for logging in, but it's okay. I'll show you why. Okay, so I'm going to register it. I got a code. I'm going to give this, verify the code, all good. Okay, so I filled up everything. Click on create. It takes a few seconds to create a user into the Azure AD B2C tenant. So it's done. I don't want to save this because it's a simple password I know. See, now you can see the outgoing call. See, it took the token as the call went off. You remember I was showing you, if it finds the call is going out of this particular endpoint, it calls and gets the token. And if you take this token and go to jwt.ms and decode and see, you will see all of those things. See, you can see you can see everything here, given name, first name, last name, claims, all of those things, right? So that's the good way to see jwt.ms. Okay, given name, family name is a new user, true, name is this. Okay, so this is good. So this is what you need to do. Now let's go to this different place. Let's see if everything works. Everything looks good, but have you ever noticed, I'm gonna log off this, it should have not even invoked, right? A user like us. So we saw we have to log in order to get to the website, right? So it was always asking us to log in. But think of it, for a user to just browse what's going on, they don't need to log in. They don't necessarily need to log in. They may not even like to log in. So how do we get rid of this? Though our authenticated APIs are there, we have some anonymous APIs, which means anyone can invoke. So how do we change this? Here's the thing. So I modified a piece of code and I'll tell you what it is. Okay, so now if I go to the website, go to this category, you can see the calls are going on. You can literally see the calls are going on, but there is nothing, we are not doing anything else. We're not even sending the bearer token. You see this? We're not even sending the bearer token. However, if you log in, it'll ask you to log in. So this is so you can also log in, but you no need to log in if at all you don't want to, right? So that's what our intention is. So let's see, if I log in, also it will work. If I don't log in, also it will work. You can see now after we log in, also it is not sending any token. Okay, which is okay. I'll tell you why it is doing that. So this is the code I modified. So if you come to this app.config, let me enhance this. Okay, so all what I did is, if you come to this app.config, earlier this piece of code was there. So what this is doing is, it is kind of an interceptor. You see this MSAL interceptor config. So basically what we are doing here is, hey, if the outgoing endpoint is there in your outgoing call, if you intercept that there is a call going out, add the scope. If there is no scope added, the MSAL knows how to trigger a login automatically. Now I modified this in separately. So basically we are saying, hey, if the outgoing call is going, if it is a get call, don't do anything. If it is post, put, delete, patch, which means definitely we are doing something with the code operation, then I need to have a token. If not, I don't need to do. That's why all the get calls that is happening is no more authenticated. MSAL is allowing it to call. See, if the server is also protecting it, it would have denied it, but we already marked it as allowed anonymous, right? You saw, that's what it is doing. So there is a big example that I showed in the e-commerce application where multiple microservices will have different scopes going on. So let's not complicate, but this is a simple thing. That's why we're doing this. As we progress in this course, there will be some endpoints where only authenticated user can be able to do it. So we can protect that either from the route guards and also from the API side. Okay, so if a particular user is not having a particular role, we will decline the request. So that also we can do, other than the scope and the claims, right? So this is what, guys. So this is our AD B2C for our online course application. You saw from start to the end. Let's summarize. You need to first create an AD tenant, AD B2C tenant. After you create a tenant, you need to create user flows. We created 3 user flows. Then you go to the app registration and create 2 app registrations. One is for the UI, one is for the API. From API, you will expose an API with the scope, and then from the UI, you will consume the API, which is API permission, right? So after you do that, copy all of those important credentials and URLs, then put it into the respective project, like the UI project and the backend project, and then if you run, it'll work. Now we just logged in, right? Because this AD tenant was new, if I go to users, there'll be one more user which I logged in as my Gmail account. You see this? There's one more is coming up. This is the inbuilt one. This is the one that I logged in. So this is how you will see, and I hope you enjoyed this video. In the next video, what I'm going to show you is, we are going to configure some Azure functions and do some API connectors in this AD B2C, where we will also include the roles for each person who's logging in, and that you will see in the claims. With that, we can do many stuff, right? So stay tuned. If you like this video, do subscribe to my channel, share this with your friends and in your circle. If you have any more questions, let me know in the comment section. I'll meet you in the next video. Bye bye. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more tech tutorials. And don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notified when we post new videos. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments below. Happy coding!